Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with two very special guests. Our first guest today is Paul Selig, and he's here to share with us his new book, Alchemy, a channeled text. Now, Paul is considered to be one of the foremost spiritual channels working today. He received his master's degree from Yale University, is a noted educator, served on the faculty of the New York University for over 25 years, and is the former director of the MFA in the writing program at Goddard College, where he now serves on the board of trustees. A spiritual experience in 1987 left him a clairvoyant, and his work has been featured on ABC News Nightline, Fox News, The Unexplained, and many more. So let's welcome to the show, Paul Selig.
Thanks for having me.
You know, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book, but also your life. My goodness, you've had a very extraordinary life.
I guess so. I tend not to think of it that way, but yeah, I've been through some big changes. That's very true.
Well, everyone's going through one change or another. But before we get started a little bit on your path, I'd love to know what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I don't write my books. I'm a channel. So I sit in a chair, I close my eyes. The guides that I work through dictate the entire book. There are 9 of them now, 8 in print. The 9th is almost ready. And, they're dictated before audience. The transcripts of the recordings are what become the book. So I really just know that there's another book that's coming, and I make myself available for the time, and then the book is delivered.
Oh, I love that deep connection. You talked about your guides and you're sharing the wisdom of the guides. So what is that connection like?
It's odd. I mean, I I often describe what I do is as being a radio. And so when I tune into this station, I get a broadcast. The broadcast is this information that comes through in the form of books and workshops, or if I'm working psychically in readings. And it's always present, but I have to tune into it. I have to align to it. It's really not invasive in my life. The guides are teachers. I'm being taught through this experience as well. I don't know that I'm always the best student, but I'm available for this work because I show up for it, very consistently and have now for a number of years.
So why don't we start also? I mean, I think a lot of people may be curious as like, when did you start to channel? What was that like? Is this something that you were born with?
No, I don't think it was. I started to open up psychically when I was 25, 26 years old. I was about a year out of Yale. I'd gotten a master's degree there. I had a list of things that I thought I had to have achieved in the world that I thought would make me okay. I got the whole list. I wasn't okay. I began to look for something more, really out of necessity, not because I was curious about spirituality. I had a bit of an opening spiritually, and with that came the psychic abilities. When I was in my early 30s, I studied a form of energy healing, and I was volunteering at a center for people who were living with AIDS. In those days, it was, it was something you did not survive back in the early 90s. And I found that when I had my hands on people's bodies, I could hear things for them, and they would, confirm the information that I was getting. And as I began to trust that I was accessing information for others and begin to work with that channel, it began to open, and I began getting more and more information. I sat in a group for about 18 years doing this before anybody knew that I was doing this publicly. I was, on the faculty of NYU. I was running a graduate program at a small college in Vermont as well. And I was doing this because I was so fascinated by it. But once the guides began delivering books through me, which began in 2009, and I began to get public with this work, I had to adjust. And so how I work now with, lectures and books and all of this stuff coming through is very different than it was when I was beginning. I was hearing fragments, bits of information for other people, but nothing like it is now.
Did you find that it was a difficult transition for you going from, here you are in the academic world and now all of a sudden, in many ways you're really kind of thrown into the spiritual world as well?
I mean, it was strange. It wasn't frightening. It was confusing. I had been raised something of an atheist, so having a spiritual life was something very new for me and nothing that I ever thought I would have, or I didn't even know why one would want that, but it happened. I had been in my youth a playwright, and playwriting was about bringing through voices and characters. And I didn't know at the time, but when I was young, I used to induce trance. I didn't know that that's what I was doing when I worked. So I'd put on one piece of music on loop and play it for hours and just let my fingers, fly across the keyboard. And I didn't think of it as channeling because it wasn't. I mean, it may have been inspired. This is a whole other kind of phenomena. But when I look back to it, I believe that I had been prepared for it for quite some time. I don't know that I chose it. I wasn't somebody that even necessarily believed in channeling. I was suspicious of it. But when it began to happen, and I adjusted, and I continued to, frankly. It's still an anomaly, even though it's, my work now.
Well, I'm so glad that the work chose you, you chose the work, however that came to being. Because the thing is, when you look at channeling, you talked about being a little bit of a skeptic, and I think that's healthy. There have been a lot of people in the past that maybe have done channeling or it has a bad name, and you really bring some clarity and light to that whole discussion because I found your work to be very profound. And the way that you work, I was just really amazed by.
Well, it's not a graceful maybe it is a graceful process. I look at some people channeling and it looks like, they might as well, just be, having a conversation over the dinner table. And I think that's lovely. It's just not how it is for me. For me, it's a physical process. I whisper the words as they come and repeat them. I speak sometimes a mile a minute. I mean, so fast that the transcriptionists have a hard time keeping up with the lectures. But, I try to stay in my integrity with this. That's the best that I can do. I show up for the work as best I can. I show up consistently. I look at it as the work. I don't think it makes me special, or I'm not looking to be seen as special. I have a facility, and that's how I think of it. I don't think of it as a gift. I have ability in this area, and I'm able to be worked with as I am. So I'm not a spiritual teacher. I'm not a guru. I have no desire to be any of those things. But I'm willing to show up for this and continue to see what happens. The fact that whole books get spoken aloud, in front of audiences that, are then published without any editing is still a phenomena for me. I still can't quite wrap my head around it. Anytime I question the phenomena, I go, no matter how articulate you are, you're not capable of dictating, 8 or 9 books without having to go back and change anything. It's a little crazy, but it's what it is.
Well, and it's so eloquent in the way that it's put together. It has you stop and thinking for a moment, So,
Yeah.
do you find that that's kind of the case when you're channeling? You have information that's coming through. You're like, wait a minute, that's pretty good.
No, it's like when I channel, I often imagine that I'm climbing into the backseat of a car and turning the steering wheel over to the guides that work with me. And I'm actually sort of hanging over, the front seat at times, listening. But I'm often listening for things that don't make sense. And then I do question it. So the guides, it's in the books, the guides will say, Paul is asking, Paul is interrupting. And I always say, I don't write these books, but I'm a collaborator. I'm being used. I can mishear a word as I'm speaking it. It happens rarely, but it happens, and then we can correct the word. It's usually just a mispronunciation, or it's a word that I never use, so I use the one that sounds most like it. And then when you see the sentence in context, you go, oh, that's what that is. It's pretty simple. But that's the extent of the work. So I'll interrupt if I'm confused. In the book that just came out, Alchemy, there was a word that the guides were using in a lecture that I wouldn't say aloud because I didn't think it was a real word. And it's in the book. They say, we're trying to speak through Paul, and he's not saying this word. And at the end of the lecture, the student said, what was the word? And I blurted out the word, and we looked it up. And indeed, it was a word. It was just a word that I had never used in my life before. I didn't know the definition of. And, if I stay out of the way, I'm most effective here. And that's when I'm doing my best work, is when I'm sort of sleeping in the back seat, or at least half asleep and staying out of the way.
Do you find that your mannerisms and maybe language, change dramatically when you're channeling?
Yeah. I mean, there's times where there's an accent, seems British to most of us who hear it. I've been told, although I haven't seen it, I actually heard recently online, or I saw online, that it happened on a videotape when I was channeling to the camera. But my eyes often change color. They go, I have hazel eyes, and they often go, I'm told, a very, very pale blue. And my body is used. I am gesturing. I'm embodying at the level that I can hold the energy that's coming through me. And that seems to be something that I can do in my psychic practice. I'm not a medium who works with the dead. I mean, if you're having problems with your mother and she's on, and she's still here, I can step into your mother and I may start to look like her and take on her, speech patterns or mannerisms. It's something that I've done for a number of years. And I like that because it's provable. If you say I'm having problems with my boss, you can be your boss's name. I can step in and I can broker a higher conversation that can support people. So I understand that this may make me in some ways a sort of physical medium, but I just think of it as clairsentience. It's the ability to feel energy and then, really become it. I have a friend who's a good medium who says mediumship is when one becomes the object of inquiry. You're not just looking at it from the outside. And when I'm channeling, the guides are becoming me.
Well, I know we're here to talk about your book too, but I'd love for you to share about book one with us so our listeners can get a sense before we
Sure.
kind of dive a little bit into your book two. So why don't you share that first book with us?
Well, the first book of the entire series is actually called I Am the Word, and it's the foundational text for all the texts that follow. There are 3 trilogies now, and Alchemy, the book that just came out a couple of weeks ago, is part 2 of a trilogy, of the 3rd trilogy. The first book of that trilogy, Realization, is introducing what the guides call the upper room, which is a higher state of consciousness and vibration that they support us in aligning to. Alchemy, the book that's out now, really is about the transition we have to take to move from one level of vibration or consciousness to the higher. And it's quite a journey. I'll say this: when I was dictating Alchemy, I was watching all of my stuff come up, flying around the room, and I was really having to go through very, very deep changes. I don't know that it's a book that's comfortable for the ego. The guides I work with say they don't write self-help books. These are something other. The books are really energetic transmissions that work directly with the reader. So it's, and this has always been the case. When I Am the Word came out 10 years ago, and nobody knew anything about what I did or who I was, people started reviewing the book on Amazon and saying, I'm reading this book and my body is vibrating. I'm reading this book and I'm seeing auras. And it's been that way with all of the books, but the books keep stepping up the level of vibration that they bring us to so that we can handle it, so that we can begin to manage it. So that's a roundabout way of saying the first book, I think, is the book that's best for people to start with. But every book will bring the reader to the teaching at the level that the student can come to. The guides say that they teach in a one-room schoolhouse and all are welcome.
Oh my goodness, I love that. It really sounds like these books help take the reader to new heights and new levels for them personally, if
Hmm.
I'm understanding this correctly. And how
Yeah.
great is that, you know?
Well, they do that, but I think the purpose of this isn't just for the individual. They say what happens is you begin to operate at a level of vibration where you actually are shifting the vibration of everything that you encounter through co-resonance. The guides I work with say we're in accord with everything that we see and experience. And they say ACCORD or ACHORD as if on a piano. And what they mean by that is we're all in tone, we're all in vibration or tonality. And as we lift in tone, what we begin to align to is also at a higher resonant field. So we have a collective field that we're all contributing to, which is how we know ourselves in the world. The politics of the day, the weather, all the things that we can all say, yep, it's a rainy day. We looked up at the sky. So the guides are actually moving us to a way of contributing, I think, to the whole through the level of consciousness that we hold. So it's not just, look at me, I'm a better version of me. It's actually about being a new version of you, I suspect. And that version of you, the true self, they call it an expression as you, they say is claiming a new world because that's what it can do and will do, once aligned to.
As you were channeling these books, and I know that books come, they have quite a journey from the time of bringing them together and the editing and what have you to the time of publishing. And here we are in this unique time in human history, and a book like yours is released. Do you
Mhm.
feel that your guides were kind of planning to have that happen at this time? Because it seems like humanity needs these books now more than ever.
Well, yeah. In the very first book, the guide said humanity is at a time of reckoning, and a reckoning is a facing of oneself and all of one's creations, and that everything that's been created in fear needs to be recreated in a higher way. And they're writing the books for this time. The book that just came out was dictated a year ago, over the course of 4 months in workshops and, in live and in live stream in front of students. And there was no way for me to know the kinds of changes we'd be in now, but the guides are very much speaking to them, and they have been for some time. The last several books, they've really been speaking about world change, cultural change, what really we need to begin to attend to. They say, we have choice, and they say we've been operating in separation, and that's the belief that we're separate from the one beside us, or that if there is a God, it favors some and not others. Those who believe perhaps as we do, or those who, don't do what we want them to, or are over there in the darkness. But my guides say, who you put in darkness, what you put in darkness calls you to that darkness, and what you judge, you fear. And that the action of fear is to claim more fear. They say, look at every choice you've ever made in your life in fear and see what it got you. And probably you'll see that it got you more of the same. So they're really speaking to us to support us, and I think not only making it through these times, but lifting. And they say, and they've said many times, in their teachings, humanity's chosen to progress, and the progress that we're required of undergoing, I think, forces us to look at what we've created and how we've treated one another and how our biases and fears have contributed to the problems of the world so that we can begin to truly change.
And that's what we need right now is massive change, obviously, because of all the stuff that, humans are being bombarded with right now. I mean, it's begging us to look inwards.
Yeah, and I think we have to see where we contribute to it. When the guides say we're in accord with everything, that means that the consciousness that the individual holds is also validating his or her experience. And one of the simplest teachings of the guides, which I find the most helpful, is what you damn damns you back, and what you bless blesses you in return. And they say to bless something is not to condone it, it's to claim the presence of the divine or God or whatever you want to call that upon the thing seen. so that the thing is transformed or reknown in a higher way. And we're so busy damning everything and sort of incurring that vibrational agreement. Again, what you put in darkness calls you to the darkness, that we don't often see how we've become complicit to the problems of the day. But we're all contributing to this reality through the consciousness we hold. I have no doubt about that at all.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. What are some things that our listeners can do then? That was a beautiful quote. What are some ways that they can, make that into practice in their day or make changes in their day that bring about a
Mhm.
shift?
I think one of the simplest things to do, and it's one of the things that I've gotten much better at, is not choosing in fear. And, again, the action of fear is to claim more fear. So if I don't choose in fear, I don't sort of propel that choice outward farther into my life. That's a very simple one. I mean, the guides don't say this per se, but I heard this 100 years ago or something in 12-step land. And, some people used to say there, look for the good or the God in everybody. And that's a very, very simple step that one can take. The guides say that who we truly are is the divine self, and that no one is without that spark of the divine within them. And if you focus on that at the cost of perhaps what you don't like or what you wish to change or, would disapprove of, you can begin to have a very different relationship with, frankly, anyone, but you have to be willing to do that. Watch out for self-righteousness. The guides I work with say self-righteousness is always the small self, seeking to be right. And what else? I'm going to say, let go, let God. Get out of the driver's seat a bit. Allow the possibility that there's something higher at work and at play that we can align to that wishes to support us on this journey.
When people attend, I know we're in a different world right now, so maybe like your live stream events or any type of online workshops, are you hearing the same type of thing as far as the energy that they're receiving as,
Yeah,
that they do from the books?
that's just as palpable. We
Mm.
switched. I've been working online, once a week for years. I was live streaming. And so the transition to doing the larger workshops online wasn't that difficult. We began live streaming live workshops to make it available to people, who couldn't travel or, couldn't afford, a weekend somewhere else. And the feedback was, yes, it's the same. And right now we're doing everything online and the energy's through the roof. People who used to come to the live workshops are actually preferring this model because, they get to stay at home and do the work. They can feel the energy. What I miss is being in a room with people that I can see and what happens when you're sort of working with partners, because that's one of the ways the guides teach people to work with the energy. But now they'll just teach however many people happen to be, enrolled in the class. And, we've had, hundreds and, I think we had thousands at one point, when we did a big one at the beginning of the summer. So the phenomena is present, the energy is present. You don't need a body. Consciousness isn't localized in the physical form. So you can have the experience of it wherever you are, and I'm really grateful for that, because the guides, they've delivered in the last few months. They've delivered almost all of the ninth book. They're like on day 30 or 35 of dictation, and that's happened in online workshops and with a group that I convened on Zoom. I can't do a book or a channeling without active listeners present. If it's just me in the room, I'll just turn it off if I don't like what I'm hearing. But if there is an audience waiting to hear, the agreement is set. The guides teach. When they're done, they'll say, "Stop now, please." And it's in the book. That's how I'll hear it.
I love that. I love that. That's how it all comes together. Well, and it's so fascinating how your work is. And I've got to tell you, you've got some amazing high energy. And I appreciate you not frying the circuits of all of my electrical equipment, but I could feel your energy from here. And so,
Uh,
what is the hardest part of the work that you're doing right now? What would you say is the hardest part?
that I'm the one doing it, and I think I'm still having to agree to this new reality that I'm no longer showing up to teach college freshmen, or graduate students, that this is what I do. And there's a part of me that still says, who the hell am I to do it? But I understand that my system, for whatever reason, seems set up to be able to be the radio, and I'm happy for the work. So that's the hard part. Before COVID hit, I was on the road for about 5 years, pretty much straight. I was home maybe 2 weeks a month at the most, but I was doing, workshops all around the world most weekends and sometimes staying on the road for weeks at a time. And this has been the longest for me here. I landed on Maui by accident. I was in Costa Rica when New York City shut down and couldn't go home, and ended up here. And I'm having a very different experience of myself and my life. And I'm grateful for that. I really feel as if finally I'm getting to integrate some of these teachings that have become, so much a part of my life, but I often didn't have the time to fully integrate.
Now you get that time to really focus on you, right?
I'm still working a lot, and I'm grateful that I can and that I'm able. But yes, I get to focus on other parts of me that I think were not allowed the focus because of the way that I was living and working.
So let's talk about the third book that you have that's
Mm.
coming out, I believe, next year, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's
Why?
not done yet. It's almost done, I think. They're almost at 300 pages. If they go much longer, I'm going to get in trouble with the publisher, but I don't decide, the length of the books. But the final book in the series is called The Kingdom. And the guides have said for years that the kingdom is the realization of the divine in all things. It's a state of being, it's a state of consciousness, it's a way to be in the world beyond separation. And that's what they're teaching. And it's an experiential book. It's rather different than all the others. I actually haven't read it yet. I mean, the lectures come back to me typed. Somebody else is doing the proofread. I'll have to go back and do a proofread once the whole book is together, and then go back against the recordings to see if there's a word that's off or if something seems strange. But this is the first book since the first one, which was 10 years ago, that I actually have just chosen not to look at until it's done. So I've spoken it, but I haven't read it, so I can't speak too much about it.
Well, it's coming next year anyway, so we just got a little
Mhm.
sneak peek at it, Well, and so when you talk about your guides, because I'm really fascinated with them, do you feel like you get the same energetic group of people every time, or does that switch in and out?
There's some variance within the collective, but I'm pretty clear at this point that it's one consciousness that has different facets to it, or one level of vibration. But yeah, you can hear the difference in the voices sometimes, but they're clearly working, in tandem.
So, what would you like readers to take away from this book series?
Oh, I have no idea. Hope, I would suggest that there is more than we know, and, more than we know that is actually available and can be experienced, because these books are experiential. They're not just intellectual, treatises on spirituality. They're really practical books on how to align your individual energy field to the higher. And the guides say they sponsor the students of the works. So if you're working with the book and really doing the work, you're going to be supported in it and probably go through some big changes.
So, Paul, where can our listeners connect with you and learn about the live broadcasts you're doing and be part of your community?
Well, everything's on my website, which is just my name, Paul Selig, SELIG.com. I have a subscription site, Student of the Guides, and I live stream most Wednesdays, and I've been doing one 5-day intensive every month. So there's always one of those to look forward to. But the website would give you all the information you need if you're interested. And the books are available at all the major booksellers, and you can order them online.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Paul. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Alchemy. Alchemy is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, it's available on Kindle. If you'd like to connect with Paul, you can at his website. Again, that's paulselig.com for more information. Are you fascinated by the mysterious power of human intention to make things happen? You'll want to stay tuned for our next special guest, Dr. Nisha Manek, who's here to share with us her new book, Bridging Science and Spirit, The Genius of William A. Tiller's Physics and the Promise of Information Medicine. Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with our next special guest, Dr. Nisha Manek, and she's here to share with us her new book, Bridging Science and Spirit, The Genius of William A. Tiller's Physics and the Promise of Information Medicine. Now, Nisha is a physician, author, educator, and health coach, formerly a member of the Mayo Clinic's Division of Rheumatology in Rochester, Minnesota. Nisha is an internationally recognized leader in the field of integrative medicine. Nisha is also a prodigy of Professor William A. Tiller and a student of the practical applications of Tiller's physics in medicine. In her commitment and dedication to innovative approaches to health and wellness, she seeks to synthesize the unity of her work as a physician and scientist with spiritual inquiry and practice. She is a fellow of the American College of Physicians and fellow of the Royal College of Physicians in the United Kingdom. So let's welcome to the show, Dr. Nisha Manek.
Hey, good to join you, Marianne. Hi from California.
Well, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. This title's perfect because it does bridge science and spirit. And I think most people have been going, gosh, I've been waiting for a book like this all my life.
That's true. A lot of readers have reached out to me and said, finally, you have linked concepts in a way that I can go from where we are in science all the way through consciousness, where we are in research, and then bridge it to spirit. And I didn't think you could do it in spirit, but by golly, you verified a science protocol in spirit. So, and Marianne, this book was it's my creation from Bill Tiller's work. William Tiller is a professor of physics at Stanford University. He's now retired, but I left the Mayo Clinic to look at his work a little bit more, because something told me inside that his work is worth paying attention to, because it's closer to the truth than anything that I could have seen in science, and certainly medical sciences. So, and it's also a very special book because it's illustrated. I'm a visual learner, and so I drew lots of doodles, and they were converted to publishable art by an Italian illustrator. He's in northern Italy, and Dario converted those doodles into something that people and readers can anchor their learning. Okay, so they walk across the bridge from where we are through all these concepts and then go, I can understand how spirit and science fit together. They're not separate. They're never separate, actually. So they inform each other. And this is what I call top-down science. You go into the very high truths that look almost miraculous, and then we understand how science can fit there, how it informs us with numbers, quantities, which is all about measurements. So I'll stop right there and let you have a word in, okay, Marianne, because I tend to talk a lot.
Well, that's what you're here to do, right? to really share this with us.
Yes, I want us to also have a conversation, because there's so many concepts in bridging science and spirit that we could go into week-long conferences, literally, okay? People have said, but Nisha, I wanted more on this aspect or more on that aspect. So it is little bite-sized things linked together in a bridge, 7 pillars that takes the reader right into spirit. I wanted them to really know that science is not separate at all from the spiritual. One is the outer way of knowing, the other is the inner way of knowing, but they're both important and fit together.
Well, how exciting that we live in a time where this information has just come together, because I think a lot of times people have felt like they kind of contrast, or they don't really go together. And it's so nice to know, hey, you know what? There's a lot of information there that says just the opposite.
Oh, absolutely. And if you look at human history in the 13th, 14th, 15th centuries, the church was where you found the truth. They handled science, okay? They were in charge of it. And then the big split, it's not really a split, but René Descartes really came with the rational science movement. And that really happened in the 17th century, around mid-1600s. Rational science. We can actually look at nature and measure it and look at the numbers and make sense of it. Okay. And he also said, I am my thoughts tell me I exist. So mind and body was separated. And so came this very important rational science, which took off and split from this church, okay? And so you have theology and rational science as big towers of learning. And now 400 years later, we're coming back and rediscovering that science and spirit actually do fit together again. The rational science, the skeptical mind, the doubting mind, is important, but now we've evolved and matured to a certain way that we have to look at that scientific method and say, well, doubt is all very well, but at a certain point, the anomalous and miraculous also need a new science to explain it, okay? And it can. And only very few minds can go there. And I think Bill Tiller is one of those who brought the inner way. He's a meditative mind, a magnificent mind, but he had one other piece. He knows mathematics, he knows physics, and could do the anomalous research in a way that is meaningful, the numbers make sense, and most important, could interpret them in a rational way and say, wow, this miraculous, target experimental data can really, we can make sense of it. In other words, he tested the power of human intention in controlled condition in the lab setting, okay? And so when you have these rigorous scientific protocols in place, and when you do your intention as a test, you're looking at it, does it really have an effect on materials out there? He showed you can. He showed that over and over again. And that is remarkable. That to me was mind-blowing, that human intention can actually have effects so large you can measure it in a physics lab. And to me, as a medical doctor, that really is a game changer. Okay, it really tells me, well, if a human being can change things so remarkably, and he actually changed water, he changed human enzymes, which is alkaline phosphatase in the lab, well, then what does it mean for medicine? That's where I came in, okay? And he calls it information medicine. I'm going to just stop there for a moment because you might have questions.
Well, it's interesting because when I look at both your background and Dr. Tiller's, what was it that initially got you interested in Dr. Tiller's work?
I was very interested. Now, as a medical doctor, I have been trained in anatomy, histology, biochemistry. That's where I focus on. So in my daily practice, I analyze the body's system through blood testing. I'm looking at the body's chemistry. I do x-rays to look at the physical structure, and then I try to piece it together to fix something. Okay, so we're really looking for disease, something that's dysfunctional, and then we try to correct it with a prescription. This is really my paradigm, which is chemical medicine. And really, Marianne, if we really look at that paradigm, it has helped us a great deal, but we are stuck in the chemistry milieu. Chemistry is not the whole answer. And I think it's very limited thinking. And so I came to it from, there's more to chemistry than just, looking at truth. And I actually came to Tiller's work from the biofield, subtle energies. And these are acupuncture meridians, which we now know definitely exist in the body. It's taken Western science a long, long time. And I think part of the reason I cover it in Bridging Science and Spirit is that when we cannot see things in structure, or we cannot measure it readily, then we have a hard time with it. Okay, we really want things that we can measure, we can see, they're tangible. Okay, and the subtle energies are not tangible, but they're very real. And they're very real because when you do Tai Chi and yoga or Qigong, which is a form of Tai Chi, I can feel things. I can feel things in my body. It's tingling. It can be warmth. It can be things I can play with. Literally, I say the play with, because when I first did my Qigong class, I felt things, and I'm a very rational person. And I thought, well, I can feel it in my hands. I can bounce a ball. It's invisible between my hands. I can expand it, contract it, and move it around. What is this? But if you put a device like an electromagnetic intention with my consciousness, and that's where Tiller gives a structure. He called it subtle energies. Subtle energies, the word subtle is misleading because it almost makes us think of something very weak or ephemeral, but it's very real. And what he meant by the word subtle is that it's difficult to detect with conventional science instruments. And so with intention, when I do Qigong, I can rev up my acupuncture meridian system. Now, underneath any chemistry is this real pump of subtle energy or acupuncture system really doing the work. Even if I move my muscles, if I move my brain, to talk to Marianne, the underlying systems that feed it are the acupuncture meridian system, which is really astonishing. So the physics tells us that when you do anything in nature, when you work, energy potentials move things. So in the physical body, it's not just chemistry. The underlying, if you like, energy pump is the acupuncture system. So already I could find, okay, when I give a steroid or I make a change in diet, it's all very well. But if I do Tai Chi, wowzers, you're really now bringing in a bigger change, a bigger energy potential that powers up the chemistry. So actually one change that Tiller's physics made to my practice was at the bedside, I might prescribe a medicine or a diet change or a supplement, but I always tell my patients, start some Tai Chi practice. And this is for some patients, when they take this seriously, they really begin to see magnified changes. So they might have a methotrexate or turmeric supplement, but when they do Tai Chi, they are powering up their wellness. But here's the bigger issue. They're taking charge and learning a skill set that's theirs. They're not just leaning into the doctor. They're leaning into their own energy system, which nature has provided. It was already there, okay? So many of my patients say, I never knew this. I never knew that Tai Chi could really power up my wellness. But then we go into the third. So you have chemistry, you have energy, but here's where Tiller really, really changed my thinking. Intention, okay? When you make a decision, you're thinking is your intention. So when I get up, I have an intention all the time. It's playing in the background, okay? I had my coffee. I meditated. I got ready to speak with Marianne. I wanted to share information, which I am creating right now as I speak with Marianne. None of this is prepared, actually, okay? It really comes to serve the listeners well. That intention is playing out every single time. Right now in my clinical practice, it's telemedicine. I show up, I listen to my patient, and then I dive more into their information. That means what gives the meaning. What is the biggest healing thing that they have experienced? When we go there, and they're very surprised, by the way, by this line of questioning, we open up a treasure trove of things that are really meaningful for them, okay? And so, yes, I prescribe medicines, and yes, I will tell them about breathing, about Tai Chi, about yoga, and some of them say, yeah, I'm exploring that, but I'm not sure where it fits. And so we dive in there and explore it. And then I say, what gives meaning to your life? I'll give you an example right now, because since we're talking about it, I serve underserved populations in the upper Midwest with rheumatology because they don't see many rheumatologists out there, and they really need rheumatology services. So some of these are, Indian tribes on the reservations, and I'll say to them, I ask, what is the tribe? What is the deep spiritual teaching in your tribe that gives you great meaning? What is one thing you can share with me? And they'll say something like, I have my voices to the spirit world, and it's not even a prayer. It's my voices connected to them. And so this thing, when they say to me, it creates a deeper sense in the clinical encounter. And now I can go there, and we both go there and say, how could that voice be tailored? How could that be that voice is really intention, be crafted in a way that helps your arthritis? And so we work with it, and they come away with a much more, and by the way, it's me too, I come away with something that is deeply enriching and nourishing, and then we are linking to their wellness in a powerful way. We create something that they come away and go, this is instinctual to me. This is my tradition. This is my inheritance. So it's not separate from my physical wellness. So we're bridging the scientific thing, which is Nisha Manek, and my diagnostic thing, and then we link it to their spiritual tradition. Do you see what I'm saying, Marianne? I'm going to stop there for a moment.
Yes, I do see what you're saying. And I found it really interesting with all this that comes together. I mean, both you and Dr. Tiller have something in common that I don't think a lot of people know about. And, you kind of discuss about how A Course in Miracles kind of brings us all together in some way.
You remind me of this outstanding time. So, Dr. Tiller, he didn't reply to my emails and notes to connect. I said, I don't understand your papers, but something inside really tells me this is the truth, and I really need to ask you questions. Well, it took a while for his associate, Walter Dibble, to answer my emails. And then he took some more time to say, I'm coming to Scottsdale. He's retired. He lives in Arizona. Please, I really want to meet you. And I was giving a lecture at a medical conference in Arizona. I was at the Mayo Clinic at the time. And he finally said, okay, I'll meet you for dinner. And I thought, wow, I'm in. See, I'm even clapping my hand. I was so excited. And I was absolutely terrified. I didn't know what questions to ask this mind. I mean, I had so many. It was really muddled, but you really want to make use of the time. So we meet at the dinner. And, I was asking him questions around subtle energies, these energy systems. But there's one thing in his model he talks about is that when you look at materials, which is matter, the physical body, it's slower than the speed of light. It's very, very coarse. But consciousness and intention are faster than the speed of light. They're superluminal. Now, these are all new words to me, but they were very clear. I said, yeah, we're looking at the coarse things and something really faster than the speed of light. Well, in his model, the connector is a particle called deltrons. Deltrons connects the slower than the speed of light and the faster than the speed of light worlds. Okay, they're there. Einstein said nothing goes faster than the speed of light. Well, there's a limiting thought right there. Okay, I want to put it right up front. That's wrong. Okay, it's wrong. It's right only if you look at this at the material world, at the physical things. Photons, which is light particles, electrons, which is electricity, and things like that. But we're not talking about that. We're talking consciousness. We're talking about intention. So the connector is the deltron. So in that dinner meeting, I asked him, when you work with spiritual things like A Course in Miracles, I think you form more deltrons, right? And he said to me, yeah, I know Helen Schuckman. She came to me in the mid-70s, and that's when I stopped. I mean, I think I was in mid-dinner. I said, you know A Course in Miracles? He says, yeah. Helen Schuckman, the scribe, came to me in the mid-70s with the original manuscript of A Course in Miracles, and she wanted to see what I thought about it. So Tiller and Jean Tiller, his wife, had read A Course in Miracles. Okay, one of the first manuscripts. He read it. He liked it. He says, this is how I live my life. I live with the inner way. I live with the laws of God. And the laws of God are not limited to the laws of this, that, and the other, the laws of the speed of light. They make no sense to me. And so I could I know what that meant, but to me, to Nisha's ears, when he said he had read A Course in Miracles, Marianne, to me, that was also a big thing that I had found my mentor. In a sense, Tiller knew the physics, and Helen Schuckman, a fellow scientist, she was a psychologist at Columbia University and the scribe of A Course in Miracles, had brought this to Tiller's world. And that's magnificent because it told me Helen was guided. She was guided to come to Tiller, a scientist very much in the conventional milieu, but she could see that Tiller also had this spiritual giant in him who could link the two together. And actually at the time, Tiller says, I didn't want to go with there's a foundation for inner peace. There's a foundation that publishes a course, but he said, I really needed to build the bridge. That was my responsibility, because once we have a bridge from science to spirit, then people can start to see how the links form, and it will be the biggest service to the world, to science, that they can form with data. And because science is very important to our modern world, science is where people look to for confirmation. And I am going to do that work to lay the bridge down. So that's why I wrote the book. So to me, I knew I needed to walk out of Mayo Clinic, because if Tiller knows A Course in Miracles, and I was a student of A Course in Miracles at the time, and it was very, very important to me. A Course really informed me about very high spiritual ways of mind, of ways of thinking. And if Tiller knew it, then that was the mind I wanted to go with. Do you see?
Yeah. What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that with us, because
Yeah.
you in your own right, I mean, you're very much a scientist,
Yes.
as it is as well.
Yes. And so just like at the bedside, I ask my patients, what gives you big meaning? To the Native American patients, what is your spiritual tradition? How does it inform your life today? And for some, it doesn't. It's covered up. Let's put it this way. It's covered up. And the conversation, we go there and we say, let's dust it off. Which tribe are you? What is the spiritual traditions you come with? And for some, it's a homework. They go back and they have to rediscover those things, because there's great truth. There's great anchor to not only Mother Earth, but how their unwellness right now, their physical challenges can go. You can go there and you can start to heal in a deeper way. In other words, you're building new information or rediscovering the information that was already there. That's informational. Now you can tap in, you get energy, you get energized. I can even see on the camera, in the telemedicine, how their body posture changes. It's like the spine is sitting up. It's very wonderful for me to see that, because now I can tell the acupuncture system suddenly got enlivened or entrained with their heart, and they're sitting up. Even their body posture changes. Now they have something. Okay, now you have something to anchor in. Then you can work with them slowly, rediscovering more and more expansiveness, not just the body, but you're layering and rediscovering and layering. And it's a really beautiful discovery. Yeah.
Well, you briefly touched on that there are 7 pillars, and I'd love for you just to kind of briefly go over what those are. I mean, your book, Bridging Science and Spirit, has so much great information. I mean, people have to get the book and read it, but I think it'll be great to have people understand what those 7 pillars are.
Yes, I start the book with Copernicus, he was a bishop in the church. He was in the church, and he said, the church's view about Earth being the center of the universe is incorrect. The math is approximate, but not quite. He was not satisfied. And he says, okay, I'm going to look at the heavens and doing my own mathematics. And he did this in secret. Can you believe it? So even in that time, he would go up to the heavens, look through a thin metal tube, and actually followed Mars. He did the Mars would follow its trajectory, did mathematics, and realized that actually if you put the sun as the center of the solar system, then the whole mathematics falls neatly into place. All the planets, Jupiter, Saturn, you could see those heavenly bodies. And when you do the trajectories, he realized that Earth is not the center. It's really the sun. And he hid his manuscript. He hid it for many decades. And then he published it in 1543, or the orbits of the heavens, or something like that it's called. And that was the first revolution, that science, when you do the numbers and interpret it correctly, then you have a way forward to the truth. And that is the truth that stands the test of time. The sun is still the center of our solar system. So I opened the book with that first pillar. And then I also look at René Descartes, and how he formed the rational science that we still live by today, Cartesian system, the whole coordinate system, which is very important in graphs and so on, that we use today in science. Those tools are very, very important and alive, okay? But he also put the skeptical mind front and center. So Descartes, this skeptical mind can trip us up. So that's the first pillar. And I end the first pillar with, is the speed of light really the limitation? Really, is that where we want to go? And I say we have to go beyond it. And I give the example of the Higgs boson. So that's pillar number one. And that's a lot right there. Pillar number two, we cover consciousness. And consciousness is not the brain. I give examples and why that is a limiting belief, okay? Pillar number three, we go to thermodynamics. And now that's a bit of a technicality, but I needed to form the readers' platforms so that they're not, they know what energy is from the physics perspective, what entropy which is disorder is, and coherence. Okay, we want to know that. And we also want to know information from the perspective of thermodynamics. Pillar number four is where Tiller really tested his intention to change materials out there. The so-called target experiments, what the data showed, and it really turned science upside down, in my view, that human intention can measurably change materials out there, water pH, human enzyme, and the living system, the fruit fly. Pillar number five, till I go into something that Tiller stumbled into, the El Dorado of physics, the physicist's gold, which is space conditioning. And here I unpack symmetries in nature. There are deep symmetries in nature that inform us into how things really function in nature. And we are connected with that. Human intention taps us into the physical vacuum, okay, the space. And then I go into what that means in pillar number 6 of the bridge, which is information medicine. I give real world examples of human intention healing people, cell energies which travel thousands of miles. Tiller's in Arizona, but his intention is not located physically in Arizona itself. You can project or broadcast information thousands of miles, not through a telephone wire, but through field effects. And this whole concept of field effects are terribly important. In medicine, we don't even talk about fields. We only talk about the human biofield, and we locate it by the human system, which is very, very non-local, but these are non-local effects, okay? They travel without decay thousands of miles to the recipient. And so Tiller did healing experiments with autistic children, with people with loneliness, which is epidemic. And also we did a case report on a person with arthritis. So that's information medicine. And finally, in pillar number 7, we looked at, this is really fascinating, the Buddha's relics. Relics of the historical Buddha still exist today. They survive for 2,600 years. And relics, if people don't know what they are, relics are remains of a Buddha master, Master Jesus. His cross, where he was crucified. People have collected the wooden pieces, and I can give you lots of examples, but basically, relics are the remains of a very high consciousness. That high consciousness leaves things, artifacts and things behind that hold the essence. And for Buddha, it was loving kindness. And so I came across these relics and imprinted one of the Tiller devices, which we tested with Tiller's model. And it turns out that the Tiller physics speaks to the Buddha's relics. And by the way, I gave this paper I wrote to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Okay, so they're aware that this work is there, and the Buddha's relic is a vital clue to the whole question of consciousness, because it's a device. It's not a brain. It's like a pearl-like device that holds the essence. It's conscious. I mean, it's the best way I can describe it. This object is conscious, and it doesn't have flesh and bones. It's nobody there. There's no body. Okay, so in pillar number 7, we look at the spirit side of things, at the space, at consciousness again, and it comes back to us. We are evolving, Marianne, from Homo sapiens, the thinking mind, to a spiritual species, Homo spiritus, Homo illumini, which is the self-illumined man. And I even give a third example, Homo universalis, the brotherhood of man. And I say these things even with our current milieu of a very divided world. And, if you look at history, this is repeating itself. This is not new. We will come up stronger. This is our platform to reach higher, to reach within and without, and build a stronger species and leave the world a stronger and more resilient and a bigger world for the children and grandchildren who are here. And you know what? They observe us. They learn through observation. They gather information and they learn from us. We are the teachers of the world today. And I would say to the listeners, don't die as a student, die as a teacher. I'm going to stop there.
Well, how true is that? I mean, because when we look at legacy, it's like, what type of legacy are we leaving for the world? And one that's more empowering, I think, is the place to be.
Yes, it sure is. We've covered a lot, Marian, and I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity. We've condensed a lot here in just half an hour.
Oh, we'd even, touch the tip of the iceberg with this book, not even a little bit. Where can our listeners connect with you, Nisha, and learn more about your book and your work and be part of your community?
Oh, thank you. So my website is nishamanekmd.com. So it's my name, Nisha Manek, Manek, MD.com. And there'll be some blog posts that I'll be putting in there. And there are tools from Bridging Science and Spirit, which I put out as the pandemic unfolded. And these are for the people who are already on my email list. And the feedback I received was just amazing. And I realized I really need to reshape them and put them as blog posts. And they'll be going up in the next couple of weeks and months. So I do encourage your listeners to sign up. And by the way, when they sign up, there is the original science paper that I published around the Buddha's relics, and it's from the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. And it's hard to get these scientific papers, and it's open access. When the reader or listener signs up, they can download the full-length paper. And I encourage them to read it and reread it, because as you do that, the truth and the scientific nuggets unfold for you in your own life. it's good to sit with these things. We're of a society of fix it quick. I want it now. Instant gratification. But I tell you, this paper, when you sit with it, the truth will be revealed to you second time, third time reading it. So it's free for you. It's there. You can download it.
Oh my goodness, what a great gift that is. Well, Nisha, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
It's been a pleasure, Marianne. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for giving me this chance to speak about my explorations and about Dr. Bill Tiller.
Well, thank you, Nisha. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Bridging Science and Spirit. Bridging Science and Spirit's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, it's available on Kindle. If you'd like to connect with Nisha, you can at her website, nishamanekmd.com, for more information. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.